all see, you all hear it, all know it, but not really. It takes like a couple seconds to focus on you. So what you can do is before you start speaking, we all know each other's names. If you can say your name, then the people on the internet know who you are, because you start talking and there's like 2 seconds and then it shows you and they're like, who is that dude? You know, no offense, you're all gonna be famous eventually. But do that. Be mindful that every little sound you make is focusing. So if you do this, don't do this. Be like ready to be on camera when you're rifling through your first, especially your candy wrappers or whatever it is. And try to speak up a little bit. Some of you come up here and reports. Okay. 15 minutes. Ain't nobody got time for that. Okay, I'm gonna call us to order at 9:06 a.m. And the first item on our agenda is opportunity for public comment. We have one public comment. Please state your name. Oh.
Robert Krause, Director of Operations, Libertarian Party. Real quick, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure Jake knows how much we love and thank him for the barbecue Friday night. It was absolutely delicious. I wish I brought more back to the hotel. I wish I had a microwave in my room. All I would be eating the entire weekend would be that delicious brisket, the pork, and the mac and cheese. I mean, was that like the best? Seriously, we're coming back to DC. I don't know when, but when we're back here, we know what we're doing, right? I mean, there's no question. So anybody that knows Jake, and I'll send him a message as well, please thank him again profusely for everything he did. Secondly, if you are planning to do the tour of the Washington Hilton tomorrow, let's meet in the lobby right at 9:30. And then we can figure out exactly how many cars we have, how many Ubers we need to order, or whatever to get over there and back. Okay, so 9:30 tomorrow, but if you could just raise your hands if you know you're going, just so I can get a quick count. 1, I know 2, I know 3, who else? 4, anybody else? Anybody else? Am I missing anybody? Okay, 4 or 5, okay. Just so I can tell them how many packets. 6, perfect. All right, I'll come to do like 10 packs.
What time did you say, Robert?
9:30 in the lobby. Thank you.
Morning, my name is Luke Enzer from Pennsylvania. Yesterday when I did public comment, I was speaking my own thoughts. This time I am speaking on behalf of someone else, namely one of the disputants to the recent Libertarian Party of Idaho issue. You're going to be scheduling a special meeting, and I was asked to read this letter. On behalf of Libertarian Party of Idaho Sorensen Board, members of the LNC, thank you for taking the time to help resolve the issue that has arisen in Idaho. Thank you as well to Mr. Smith for bringing this issue to the board. Ever since the convention in Reno, members of the Libertarian Party of Idaho have been dealing with what amounts to a coup by a rogue board to remove members of the Mises Caucus from the board and from the Judicial Committee. This coup has taken a toll on the party and the members directly affected by these actions. Hours have been taken away from fighting for liberty, time with family, and many needed vacations. It has also cost members to pay out of pocket for attorneys to sort through statutes. That's time and money that could have been spent fighting injustice in our state. We have done everything in our power to resolve this issue on our own. It has become clear that one side refuses to engage in any type of dialogue. We know that many of you are busy dealing with the many issues facing the party, and coming before you is something we do not take lightly. Due to recent actions taken by the rogue board, mainly setting another convention this coming month, we feel that immediate action must be taken before any more member funds are spent by a rogue board attempting a coup. Thank you again for taking the time to help us resolve this most urgent matter so that we may focus on fighting the state. Jason Sorensen, legitimate chair of the Libertarian Party of Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Do we have any other public comment? Going once, going twice? All right, I think that's it for public comment. Actually, I'll make one more announcement during public comment. We are going to have pizza for lunch, Robert, is that correct?
Yeah, there'll be pizza and wings. I believe some of that pizza is vegetarian, not vegan. And they may throw in a salad or something else too.
Okay, so that lunch is being provided. If that does not work for you, I recommend you order in so that we can try to get through the day and get through as much business as possible before people leave. We are also getting a whole bunch of cupcakes. And Connor is gonna go pick them up as a thank you to our staff. We really appreciate you. And we will be missing you. So there, thank you, best wishes, goodbye, good luck, cupcakes. And we signed a card for you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so no more announcements, no more public comments.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to move to suspend the rules and amend the agenda to add two possible additional policy manual amendments. One of them would be to amend the way the affiliate support committee is constituted. Right now, it says that 3 members will be appointed by the LSLA. I believe those 3 members should be appointed by the LNC, considering our new vision for the affiliate support committee. Secondly, and this is contingent, the candidate support committee has a required 5 LNC members. No LNC members applied for the candidate support committee. So if there's not 5 who want to be on it, perhaps we want to convert some of those to non-LNC members. So I would like to add that to the agenda just prior to the election.
Okay. So,
Second.
there we go. So that's been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion or?
No, I think I did.
Does everyone know what the LSLA is?
Yeah, the LSLA is the Libertarian State Leadership Alliance. They used to be very, very active. Maybe, they haven't been that active since I've been involved, but I know they were at one time. But each time it's taken a bit of time for them to appoint their representatives. But your vision of the affiliate support committee yesterday seemed to be much more LNC driven. And I just think it's in our best interest to appoint those members. We can always later add members if the LSLA comes to us and says, hey, we have some people, but we need to take care of this today.
So I'm taking, Aaron Adams is the chair of the LSLA. And full disclosure, technically, I'm the vice chair. And it hasn't met in quite a while. So just so I understand the proposal, you're looking to move the LSLA off of affiliate support, or I'm just.
Okay, the way it works now is 3 members of the affiliate support committee are appointed by the LSLA.
Right.
Because there hasn't been any emails from them, interaction with them, and we want this committee to get started immediately, I think rather than waiting, we appoint those 3 members. We could always expand the committee and the SL, you know what I mean, meets and wants to have some appointments that they talk to Chairman Hartle and perhaps that can be negotiated. But, you know, I'm understanding our chair's vision for the affiliate support committee. And I just think it's in the best interest of the party and this body for us to make those appointments.
Any further discussions or questions?
Well, I'll just add, some feedback that it is really important to get this committee going. So this is a possible solution that will allow us to do it because we're entering into campaign season. the heart of it. So, it's a really important thing to consider.
Okay, so this motion is just to amend the agenda. We are not going to an actual vote on the committee. Okay, any other discussion before we go to a vote? Okay, it takes 2/3 to amend the agenda. So we're just gonna do a voice vote if I need to count off so that our secretary can take roll call, we'll do that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any recorded abstentions? No? Okay, motion passes. The agenda is amended. Okay, our next order of business is new business with previous notice, and it's Mullen presentation on CRM background and update presented by Dustin Nana. Dustin Nana is not here yet, but they are perfect.
The video is 10 minutes long, so perhaps if you play the video, okay.
Everybody fine with that? There's apparently a 10-minute video. Okay.
Do you want us to call into, and have him now or wait?
No, let's do it right before the video, 10 minutes after the vote.
Right.
Right before the video completes.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay,
So let me make sure my volume is up. Let's see if we can hear this.
In the past, the LNC often seemed to focus on things that didn't matter, or arguing amongst itself, or engaging in various pet projects with no real benefit on the ground where politics happens. This inevitably led to the question, what exactly is it that National does for us? Why should we be affiliated with the National Party at all? Or for that matter, why does the National Party even exist if they're not going to provide assistance to our affiliates? As this question lingered, various projects within the party began to consider this legitimate concern. Today, on the IT front, National now provides websites, CRM, email, travel ticketing, project management, and most recently, a learning management system at no charge to states. We have also examined setting up a chat server for internal communications. Because we own our own hardware, we are data sovereign. We cannot be shut down by any provider who may one day decide that we are no longer welcome on their service. So now let's look at some of the specifics on how we got here. In early 2017, LP work was fixed. A new version had been rolled out in late 2016 on AWS and costing the party approximately $1,200 per month. Andy Burns found a WordPress provider for LP.org and lowered the cost to about $250 per month. We also cleaned up the 2008 to 2016 version of the website, which was a leased server at $830 per month, and brought in all the historical content. After fixing LP.org, we found out an even older version of this server from 2002 to 2008 was still in use for email and was costing the party about $560 per month because moving email can be painful. As the IT committee spun up and it began to take ownership, we also figured out we could provide email for free to states as well, and we began doing so leveraging economies of scale. The total savings for the party were about $2,100 per month. So the IT committee asked affiliate support where we could help affiliates. All state parties need a website, a way to manage their data, and branded email. But many state parties were struggling with one or more of those items. And so work began to resolve those issues. Specifically, data retention and management were identified as almost a universal problem. State parties had their data in various states of disarray. Some states had city CRM instances that weren't being maintained and were failing. Other states were on Nation Builder or other services, but no one was keeping the data up to date or clean. Some states were still using Google Docs or Excel spreadsheets. And National was sending information to states on a 1-month delay with Excel spreadsheets. So the IT committee looked for solutions. The criteria were that it was one system to manage, not 51 installations. That the system would have the ability to scale in data size. That there would be an ability to share contacts through multiple levels. We wanted a proven, long-term product. That we would not have any vendor lock problems. And that in the end, we would be able to do whatever we wanted it to do. After months of evaluation, It was determined city CRM was our best available option, and the IT committee made the recommendation to the LNC in July of 2017. The LNC gave the green light for the demo project. The IT committee reported back to the LNC that the project was successful in December of 2017. Project funds were approved by the LNC in July of 2018, but unfortunately, funds were not released until February 2019 due to a cash crunch after the 2018 convention. Since that time, the project has continued to grow. Originally, we were hosted at a service provider starting in July of 2017. We outgrew that provider and moved to rented hardware in May of 2019. And then we outgrew that server and we purchased hardware in October of 2021, which is now co-located in Texas. We have a total of 30 states on board. It is also important to note that this is not the first time the LP has engaged in a data project. It is, however, the first time that a data project has succeeded. Multiple attempts to do this outside the party have all failed. And this project has enabled other successful projects. The email hosting, trouble ticket service hosting, and project management software hosting are all piggybacked on the hardware at no additional cost. Going beyond simply providing a website for state parties, the goals behind the project are to collect our data, clean our data, consolidate our data, and conserve our data, or the 4 C's, to improve the data for all levels of the party. To understand these goals, it is important to understand that there is more than one type of CRM, or customer relationship management system. For instance, Razor's Edge, LP National's traditional CRM, is focused primarily on fundraising. eCanvasser is focused on candidates and campaigns, a very short-term vehicle. Many other CRMs focus on selling a product or a service. As we have implemented it, City CRM is meant to be a long-term party data retention vehicle to develop and maintain relationships with current and future libertarians. So back to the 4 C's. Collecting data that was in various buckets, islands, and various dates of disrepair has been a major goal. State parties, and even at times the national party, would spin up one-off projects or websites or whatever, and that data would not end up being put back into any sort of database and lost to time. Cleaning data has proven to be one of the most difficult tasks. Conflicting data, multiple formats, different maintenance, different methodologies, all of this makes it difficult to actually convert the data into something usable and complete and current. We must standardize our inputs in order to have data we can leverage. Which leads us to consolidate. We need a single data bucket, continually updated with the latest, best known information. Through consolidation, we create one bucket with better coordination between national, state, and county affiliates. And last but not least is conserving data. Data loss is completely unacceptable. Whether that data loss is due to turnover, negligence, burnout, or even sabotage. These are all reasons why information has been lost. Perhaps the greatest success of this entire program has been the survival of the data through state party turmoil. The long-term vision of this project is that National provides services to enable states to focus growth in county parties, because county parties are on the ground and can build teams for phone banking, door knocking, and other get-out-the-vote activities. This is an older slide, but things we are able to provide today include an integrated web and CRM, automated entry forms, integrated user accounts, ability to get volunteers phoned quickly, content, events, blogs, etc., manageability by affiliate parties. Contacts are automatically assigned the appropriate levels in the party when they're created. Addresses are cleaned and data is normalized as it is put into the system. Contributions are integrated into the system. We've built out for regions and counties throughout the whole entire country, ready for them to start. Membership management, volunteer management, event management, all there. Email blast capability, media management, convention credentialing. Text banking is mostly available, though it could use some funding to improve it. And we have our issue tracking system still in place as well. The key to the system is economies of scale. Everything we accomplish for every affiliate in the system. Most recently, we implemented BitPay as a means of taking Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency that is now available to all the states in the CRM. We made it work once, we made it work for all. So the question that we have for the new LNC is, what should we focus on given our current resource levels for the next 6 months? And there are 3 basic choices. We can complete the Razor's Edge migration, we can focus on state onboarding, or we can focus on features and improvements. If we focus on the Razor's Edge migration, it will save LP National $57,000 per year every year. It would reduce data movement, hand keying, and other human errors. The migration is already 70% or so complete, and this migration should and could have been completed in 2021, but was delayed due to pushback by a former member of staff. Or we could focus on state onboarding. There are approximately 10 states currently in the queue. The data transformation and cleanup is the hard part. For instance, to clean up Florida's 100,000 contacts has taken the better part of 10 months. Currently, the timeline for onboarding is approximately 2 years. Or we can focus on features and improvements. Many of these are already in progress, but better text banking, a better email editor, emailing for county parties, better reporting, performance improvements. For all of these, additional funding speeds up the enhancements, and all of our development is done as open source to increase the long-term supportability. The LNC owns the CRM, and as such, you, the LNC, get to decide what we are to focus on. But this decision should not be made in a vacuum. This decision has real-world consequences as we once again reach a time when liberty is going to be popular. And in fact, it's already started. A predictable pattern exists. 1964, 1980, 1994, and 2010 are all years where liberty, small L libertarianism, was popular. But in each of those times, the Libertarian Party failed to grasp that libertarian movement. Instead, the beneficiaries were the Republican Party, who, within moments of getting elected upon libertarian principles, turned their backs on those very principles. The next time around will be 2024. And if you agree with this pattern, this liberty cycle, then it is incumbent upon you, this LNC, to make the best decisions, to put us in the best place to leverage the cycle that has already started, so that this time the beneficiaries are those who believe in liberty. That would be us. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we need to call Ken and Evan.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep. They're going to call into a Google number, and so am I. So here we go.
Madam Chair, I just like to say that was a great video. That was really tough.
Tried to put it all together and bring it back around. Why we do what we do.
Welcome to Google Meet. Enter the meeting pin followed by the pound key. Thank you. You're joining the call with 2 other people.
Ken, Evan, Ken? Yeah, I heard Evan. Ken? He's trying.
Okay, well, let's give Ken a minute. Hi, Evan.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. This is Angela. We're in our meeting.
And there's Ken, I think. Hi, Ken. Unmute.
I'm turning the window here, hang on.
There we go. Good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
So, that's the video question. Sir, that's my PowerPoint first thing on Sunday morning.
Okay, so we do have some questions, so I'm gonna call people out. Mark Tunevich has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for one
Great.
my question has to do with Razor's Edge, and one option is to migrate that and cost savings. Does Razor's Edge, and I'm open to evaluation as well, does Razor's Edge doesn't it have significant sort of fundraising features which would be lost in such a migration? Can you speak to that, how we might ameliorate any such losses that exist? Thank you.
Sure. So as noted in the video, Razor's Edge is focused on fundraising. So it's focused, its premise is how do we raise more money? Certainly we have moved part of what we did with Razor's Edge over to Civi. I cannot speak specifically to what features currently don't exist on the Civi CRM side. As far as I'm aware, and this is not a migration that hasn't been done before, there's actually a write-up on how to move from Razor's Edge to Civi. That's pretty good out there. But that was actually one of the things we tried to outline all last year. And finally, at the very end of, what was that, whatever the end of the term was, the last in-person LNC meeting before the convention, I had to get a motion passed to require staff to cooperate so that we could actually get that information. And then we never met again, and so we never got that information to the person who was supposed to supply that. So that pretty much is where that stands. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that.
It looks like we have an answer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
In the report that I passed out and was distributed electronically as well, we've looked at, the gap analysis, and it is basically, some fundraising. Until we're told we need to move from Razor's Edge, we're focusing on, and we're doing fundraising work with states, so things do exist. But basically, it's the wealth data from Razor's Edge. They honestly compile that and update that on, giving potential. But this already exists. Many organizations have moved from Razor's Edge to Civi. Civi is a nonprofit, see around. Nonprofits need to raise a lot of money. Wikimedia, these big organizations that are using it to fundraise. So it is much more, but it's you look at Razor's Edge, and it's a circle like this, and Civi is, bigger than that, all encompassing. So building that out, donor search is an extension that you can integrate donor search with Civi to then report on, basically do lookups and then report back on giving data along with like L2, which we've talked about, doing those appends for states, not only will national benefit, but states and counties can benefit because we'll be doing these appends with L2 fundraising focused data on, what's your ISPA score, which is like, your level of wealth. There's many different, have you given to an organization before? So L2 will be brought in a lot of that too. Between donor search and L2, that will bring a lot of the fundraising wealth data in. And then the second part is a lot of reporting and making sure that we're moving over Razor's Edge data models. So tracking candidate support fund, ballot access fund, that's very easy to do. Just making sure we're bringing that data over so then we're able to report specifically on which funds and appeals are performing. So between reporting and wealth data, that's basically the gap.
Okay.
But you can dig deeper into those, but.
So Evan would like to speak, and then Todd will give us a question. So let's go to Evan first.
I don't know if I got an introduction. My name is Evan McMahon. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Indiana and a prolific Civi CRM user. I work with A&E every week. We get together for a chat on how we can improve the system, best practices. Because sometimes, with a programmer setting out to do something, it may not have the same real world usage that state leaders or county chairs or county officers may have. So we work to try to make those things smoother. In the topic of Razor's Edge and donor prospecting, we don't use donor search in Indiana. We would like to. But we have other avenues that we use to research using third-party data, the various consumer data points and potential giving abilities, but also just monitoring within Civic CRM how our members were donating, currently giving, what types of things they're giving to. I know that there are people who only support the local county party, or who will only support a candidate, and they won't give money to the state party or the national party. I know that there are people that are the opposite of that. And so we have this relationship, acknowledgement in the city CRM, and we can see what they're doing. And that institutional information is passed on. We had an example here just recently. Somebody that I reached out to on behalf of a candidate hosted an event at their really awesome house, and they paid for all the booze and all of the food and everything. And that candidate, in one night, raised $23,000 for their campaign. And because we had institutional knowledge of who to invite, who are the people who are going to pay the $99 ticket, but they're then also going to cut a $1,000 check at the end of the night. So at the end of it, the next morning, they had $23,000 for that candidate, and the event was basically paid for by the governor. That host said to me, I don't think I've been on the party's radar for a long time. It's been, 4 or 5 years since I've been involved in the party. Why did you reach out? And I said, because I had your record, and I knew that you liked to host events for candidates. And that institutional knowledge that is gone when I die, or I retire, or, whatever. But we have it recorded in the civic hearing now. With that as well, Indiana has been talking with AID about how we can create an API to connect with donor search for the national, for the counties, for the state affiliates. And we don't think it'll be that expensive. It's just what's the priority right now? We're already partially, mostly through this election cycle. So this is something that we want to try to deal with now, or do we want to wait and do it right when we've got a 6-month window to test it out?
Okay, 1 second. Let me jump over to our treasurer. Thank you, Evan. Hang tight. And then we're going to come over to, I believe, Justin and Richmond. Okay.
All right, I have 3 quick questions. My name is Todd, Agopian Treasurer. I have 3 quick questions. I'll direct them to Andy so that they can be answered towards the microphone, and then I may offer an opinion at that point. But thank you for putting together those 3 options. We understand, I think, that we have to pick a path for you guys to go on. Looking at those options, are any of those 3 options, either the Racer's Edge migration, the 30+10, the 10 new states, or the features and benefits, outsourceable if we were to pay for them? Or are they all kind of the IT team?
Can you repeat
Hey,
it?
Yes.
Got something, somebody on the phone, respond to that.
So this is Ken. I apologize. I know I got part of that, but it sounds like which of the 3 would we prefer?
No,
Hold on a second. I'm gonna have Todd repeat his question.
Okay, so you gave 3 options. I assume those options are all going to be done by the IT team in the way that you presented them. Are any of those 3 options outsourceable if we were to try and do 2 at a time? Is the first question.
Mainly, the Razor's Edge migration, just coming from, I basically kind of become a service provider. We used to use Tadpole. We used to use another organization, and I kind of did, I was doing kind of what they did. So now I'm basically taking over as a city service provider to LPHQ and to states. So it really, the Razor's Edge migration, I'm best leading that and do basically project managing it. But we do outsource a lot of things. We work with a developer on doing like the BitPay. We have, and doing other projects, but we have 2 or 3 relationships with developers based on what we're wanting to do, or who owns, or who's the maintainer. So a lot of things are outsourceable. Razor's Edge migration, though, definitely will, it needs to be something, because I'm working with Robert and Gabby, and it makes sense. But parts of it can be, when we need assistance, or if there needs to be a development, we will outsource. But large portion is us on onboarding. That's where like resource expansion, having a staff member that can focus on that, still takes again a little of my time. And then features and improvements, it's all work divided.
Okay.
So all partially.
30 of them are on board right now. 30 states are on board right now,
Yes.
and there's 10 in the wings for a total of 40.
Some of the stats are, it changes over time.
Sure.
With, states can have new leadership and then they switch their decision. Or the responsiveness is not low. So it's 30 on right now. 7 was my last count.
Okay.
A couple months ago. But there is no state right now that is like pounding on the door like, wait, what's going on? We can't get on. Because I get states like Kansas or Indiana, they jump on, and we've done it in like 3 weeks to a month because they get back to me on everything, because they got to do work before we do a lot of work.
Once you do the migration, let's say you were to add these 7 states to SIPI, do we start making more money? Do the states start making more money? Like, what's that look like? Is there a benefit once they get on, or is it 4 years down the road? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what I'm trying to understand in my head, when I looked at your presentation, it was, let's get up to 37 to 40 states on this thing, and then let's migrate to Razor's Edge right after the 2024 election, because we get so much interest up to 2024. Let's lock in as much fundraising as possible, make sure we don't lose any fundraising from Razor's Edge, make sure we have as many states on SIPI as possible as we get that flood of new interest, and then boom, right after 2024, migrate to Razor's Edge. That's what was going through my head as I was watching.
No.
Did you guys hear the question?
No.
Andy,
I got you.
A lot of reverb.
okay,
Long story short, I think the question was waiting until after 2024 to do the Razor's Edge migration. And there are a lot of manual processes that go into feeding data back and forth between two systems, and keeping them in sync. Is a lot of effort on top of the, when we estimate, I had 57,000, I think Andy went back and read the numbers, and came up with about 60,000 a year that we are spending in Razor's Edge total that would not, that would be saved if we could off of it. And my personal opinion is if we were to get all of Razor's Edge by the end of the year, that $60,000 freed up could be used for whatever purposes. We've got ballot access, it can be used to invest in city, if you guys wanted to do that. Obviously, that's up to you guys what to do with the money afterward. But, I'm all about saving money personally, because that's how my mindset is. And I think we're mostly there. We're 70% of the way done with the migration.
Before I go to jump in here for a second, to say something about Razor's Edge and the comparison between the data. So currently right now, if you go to lp.org and you join as a member, you're joining within City Bureau. However, that data is held, and then it goes into Razor's Edge and is manually inputted in there once a month. So your membership is not processed until the 15th of the month. So as a state affiliate, I don't see you as a new member, even though if you join on our page, on the lpia.org/join, that's instantaneous. The county chairs can see it, the candidates can see it, all of our officers can see it, our volunteers can see it, everybody who has access can see it. But when it comes to national, it actually gets pulled out of the city, put into Razor's Edge, and is sent to A&B for him to basically review it. That is a huge time suck. And if we can take a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, and fix that process, and save $63,000 to national at the same time, that to me is an absolute no-brainer.
Okay, and then pause real quick, thank you. I'm gonna go around the room right now. Dustin Anna has a question. Andy has something he'd like to say. Connor has a question, and our Secretary Karen and Carlos has a question. Just calling everybody out so you know the order since you can't see.
Just before he answers, the only thing that I wanted to mention on that is what I was trying to get to was everyone wants to save $60,000.
Yeah.
Get it. Everybody in the room wants to save that. I don't want to save $60,000 if we could make $90,000 by waiting until the day after the 2024 election. That's what I'm trying to understand is if we do the extra states first, could there be more than $60,000 of benefit by doing that portion, the expansion, instead of doing the migration right now. That was where all these questions were leading, and so that's what I'd like an answer on.
No, I mean, right now, my standpoint, raised edge is clear number one migration, because it creates additional work for LPHQ and even me, like Evan's been talking about. And onboarding a state is not terribly intensive. And some of these states, in terms of creating value, I mean, it's actually putting more of a burden on national, one, just because it's just more support increases over time. And yeah, I don't know, it's just very clear to me, the raised edge, like, this is something that should have been an original plan in 2017, we were planning for 2021. We've now had it delayed by a couple different politically related things with the party. It's been very frustrating. And the fact of the matter is, these migrations, if people have read the report, these cost significant amounts of money. You're talking, $200,000. Fox Pro to raised edge in 2005-ish, when Robert's very familiar with that time frame and how it went, but $474,000 in today's dollars. I'm basically coming here and being like, this is kind of a thorn in my side, just because, and we know we can't, syncing databases is expensive, and why, if we can just bring fundraising functionality completely within the party and national, can really leverage all the leads, kind of like the Mises caucuses. When someone joins, you are routing them and getting them involved and building a community. We need to do the same thing from local to national, and state in between. And so national has to not live on a total island. And raised edge, no one talks about it because no one else even knows it exists because it's just out there. So that's the dynamic.
Okay, let's talk about.
So, and
Wait, Evan, sorry, just 1 second. I gotta let
that's the
them.
question that wasn't answered to the treasurer. Was,
Real quick.
So he's asking, he's for example, use a ton of money by switching from, donor outreach. And the point that I think Ken was whispering was that Indiana went from, in a non-presidential year, on an average of $40,000 to $50,000 in revenue. In that same year, using city CRM, we ended up raising $140,000. So it's not a question of, are you going to lose money or leave money on the table because you switch to a different system. Do you have a development director and a fundraising system that is capitalizing on the data that you do have? And if you do that and you have trackable, measurable, fundraising campaigns, then you're going to raise that money. Whether you just have this strategy, it's not going to help you. If you have somebody who's and I'm sure the development director is, running real campaigns, tracking campaigns, doing follow-up campaigns, targeting people. We just had one of our U.S. Senate candidate, Jay Siniak, here in Indiana, Tom Young, the Republican incumbent, came out and voted in favor of the Safer Communities Act, which is, creates a national federal red flag law. We use city CRM to target all of the 2A people to raise money for Jay's campaign. So it's not a question of, just razor's edge, leaving it like cost you $90 grand will leave money on the table. It's how do you take your development program strategy to use a new data point.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going over to Dustin now. Thank you.
Well, I have two things. I think time's actually expired.
That's one thing I wanted to add. I'm monitoring the comments and I'm getting all kinds of texts. If anyone turns their head, the owl loses them. You gotta speak to the owl. And you have to speak loud.
All right, so I think time has expired on this item, so I have a motion to extend time by 15 minutes, and then I have a subsequent.
Second.
By how much time?
15.
I don't think that's enough time, but okay, let's
No, start there.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objections to extending time? Going once, going twice, time's extended.
Okay, and then I have a subsequent motion. I move that we prioritize the Razor's Edge migration with the goal of completion by the end of the year, and to not renew our Razor's Edge subscription in January unless we are not finished by that time.
All right, well, I'm gonna pass the gavel because I gotta argue against it because I have a ton of questions.
I'll second.
That language needs to be sent to the secretary.
You seconding? Well, you're in charge.
What?
I'm not done hearing,
Oh.
yeah,
Take the lecture, man.
Oh, you're gonna argue against, okay.
yeah,
Oh.
okay.
You got it.
Do you want to, he needs to speak.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that staff, at least on the IT side, wants this to happen. I know from personal experience in my region that Razor Bed is not needed to raise money. I've talked with the development staff privately, and they said that this is something that might save them time as well. You're gonna save $60,000 as a national party. I think this is a no-brainer, and we need to get it done. The previous LNC's been kicking the can down the road on this for far too long. We need to get this done, and we need to get it done now.
All right, so I'm not opposed to doing this, but we have not actually discussed the financials yet, and we need to make a financially informed decision. So we're hearing that Razor's Edge costs $60K a year. I was told it costs $35 to $40K. We need to figure out how much CRM actually costs us, including staff costs. Not coming for anybody's job on this, we need to make an informed decision. Yes. Is it okay that we're discussing people's salaries and how much things cost outside of executive session?
Not salaries, not compensation through contracts.
Well, we're going there.
Total top line, it's okay to discuss
Yeah,
outside of
okay.
exec. You could say this project, including staff time, costs this much.
Okay.
Just want to get more.
So I got.
Point of clarification, can we put a per hour cost on the staff time and use that to help calculate it's in the report? Just to be accurate. Those are financial analysis.
Aggregates, estimates, project specifics, we think we should save us $10,000 in staff time. Anything that you're not gonna be able to back out specific contract details should be.
It's all, we do have if I can, yeah, please. Has electronically have the report at 14 pages. It's also in the printed one you have on the exact details. So executive session material is in that. So I will just speak to that between licensing costs, which I can say licensing costs, that's not a big thing. That's almost just under $32,000 a year every year. For Razor Edge licensing, so your software costs, paid every January, I believe. And then on top of that, we have many manual processes and things that haven't really necessarily kept up with the time. To be efficient, we spend on manual. Can I go into that, or just generally, like our cost savings?
It's sufficient to say that the rest of that number that you and Ken are quoting are staff time related cost savings.
Yes.
Batch entry. And
It's between, a lot of the manual data entry and other staff savings time. We basically get another 30,000, so you're looking at, I got 61,000.
Okay, so 32 and 31.
Mm-hmm.
Point of information.
Points of information are not interruptible, like other people are none.
That's fine, I'll use it.
I got you. I have Karen and Carlos next.
Okay, well, I had some things that didn't have to be done. Dustin hopped in with a motion. But here's my concern with the motion, and I'm a big city CRM fan, is that we're going to be hiring a new executive director. And this is a big decision that I would like the new executive director to be in on. That is my big concern. Not to push some kind of big priority before we onboarded a new executive director. I'd be much more amenable to the motion after that, but there's a couple things that I want to actually say in favor. That's my big concern. I can tell you personally, I do renewal calls in Colorado. Ken and Andy could say the big frustration I had is I started calling people based upon the city CRM data, and it was out of date because the Razor's Edge data hadn't been migrated in, and I looked like an idiot calling people asking them to renew their membership. And they go, I did that last month, don't you guys know what you're doing? So that was a big frustration in Colorado. Right. I can tell you that I was on the LNC when we wanted, when we basically made a decision, we were gonna migrate, and it got kicked. The can got kicked down the road. Here's my thing, if we're going to be on city, we need to be all in. So it's basically, let's people get off the pot, but a key participant, again, the thing with the new executive director is my overriding concern right now.
Thank you very much. I got, next, Todd, Mr. Logan.
Okay, so I just want to make my objection on this clear. I'm going to vote no, and this is why. Civi CRM, the whole argument is that it helps us make the party money, it helps us coordinate, we gather data, we can use that data to make money. It either makes money for the party or it does not. Adding 20% of the states onto the system will either have a revenue impact or it will not. If it has a revenue impact, that needs to be quantified so that we know if the revenue impact is going to be higher than the cost that we are talking about saving. It is a terrible move to save 60,000 and lose 120,000 in potential revenue that we could have had if we had delayed the $60,000 savings until after the election, when we know we have a huge influx of fundraising opportunities. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying that we don't know that is the case, and I need to see more information before making that vote. And I don't, and I'll just say from business experience, IT is going to focus on cost, marketing is going to focus on revenue. I get it, but unless we have both of those arguments in front of us, I don't see how we can make a decision like this. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Logan, Mr. Echo, next. Mr. Echo, get here. No, you did not do. Okay, next I have Rich. And now you. Okay, Dustin.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to the executive director comment. The executive director will bring it in, I think he said now he's going to be the current executive director. I actually think that this is the perfect time to make this decision because we don't want to put this on them in the middle of their tenure after they've already learned the system, which is what we kept hearing from previous staff that they didn't want to learn the system, this and that. So I think this is actually the best time while we are changing executive director so that person can come in, learn Civi CRM, and only learn Civi CRM, and not have to do this whole back and forth that we've been doing for years and years now.
Next, David.
Okay, how much does Civi CRM cost without Razor's Edge?
It's right here. What page is this?
Page 6.
Hold on.
76, 86, $100,000.
Where are we at? The pie graph with the. Okay.
Yes, the total is 100,000.
Okay, the total is $100,000.
The green part will be, I do have a note on that, but should be pointed out, so you know, every
I need to say something. Okay, I understand. $100,000 for Civi CRM. A 2-year contract with HubSpot for 900,000 contacts is $55,000. Now, HubSpot is not the same as Civi. I am aware of that. You would have to add plugins that it's not suitable. It's not ideal for what we do here as a political party. Note, $55,000 for a 2-year contract, $100,000 for Civi. Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics, I was quoted at a minimum of $32,000 a year. If we added all the bells and whistles that we needed with tech support, it could go up to $70,000 a year. I'm not suggesting we dump Civi and switch to HubSpot or Microsoft Dynamics. My question is, how can we make Civi more affordable so that it doesn't seem like a financially, like an unsound decision? Is there a way we can make it more affordable? And if, yes,
With the bodies.
if raising more money is a way to make it more affordable, I'm open to that, but I need to hear the arguments.
Sorry, I look at the green pie and decide the top is. No, I heard it. look at the green pie, look at my note on it. I started as affiliate support. You basically have gotten a crazy amount of value out of my pay. I'm doing way more doing CRM and all this affiliate support stuff, and I support operations. And I support when there's another issue at affiliate level, or even with Razor's Edge or some random tech thing, coordinating and listening to states. We do the state chair onboarding calls, lots of affiliate support stuff. I've been talking with Donovan and some other people about affiliate support. So you're looking at that number, and I just threw it in there because I said that's the extreme. Because basically, if you dump Civi, I'm done. Okay, 100%. Because if you don't believe in it about party growth and the party working together, I've just seen the rise and fall of the LP over 7 years, and so that's why I'm putting it in there. But you can decide how you want to slice up that green part, but it's actually a tremendous value, and you're getting 30 states on it, and you're actually getting a managed product that's actually well maintained. I mean, we can go on and look at the details of how well Razor's Edge is maintained and how much support we're able to give to it. So you can go to any off-the-shelf product and say this is what it costs, but the true cost is actually having it properly managed. Because there's lots of consultants out there that pick up crappy maintained HubSpots, Nation Builder, Salesforce, and they make a ton of money fixing very poorly maintained systems. And so if you can go by cheap and do it that way, you're going to really pay in the long run by thinking you can just go up bare minimum and we don't need any staff, and some tech support in another country will help me from time to time. They just want to get the revenue every year.
Next up, it's with the bodies indulgence act.
Madam Chair.
It's Mr. Chair now.
Josh is chairing right
Sorry about that. Talking about how we can minimize costs, and I rarely hear Andy, but I don't know repeating anything that he said. There's a couple of things that need to be realized. First, City Care is an open source platform, which is easier for us to get developers at a lower cost to develop enhancements and features. I talked earlier about creating an API for donor search. Income right now on its own is paying to have an API created to integrate each candidate service into CRM. We're paying for that, and it'll be rolled out so that all the states and national can end up using it because we are on a shared system. We're on a multi-site system. If anyone needs it now, so we're paying for it to get it done. I proposed to the chair and with Andy and Ken and a couple of other people that we need to have project-based fundraising, like crowdfunding sort of system where if a city party did an enhancement that needs to be made, you put a campaign page that allows the state to fundraise to raise costs for that development. And here's the interesting thing. We can absolutely do that in any given group. We're doing it right now with the cancer API. However, let's say you go to another closed system like Nation Builder or HubSpot or eBay or any of those other programs. You can't hire an outside developer to do that. You have to work within their ecosystem. And I guarantee you, the $7,000 that we're spending to create the API with eCancer would cost you $15,000 to $20,000 with another closed system. So that's a savings right there, because these are enhancements that we're going to do for the next 10, 20, 50 years. So that's one thing right there. Another thing that I don't know if anybody talked about this or not is we should have tiered services. So when it's taking Indiana that having to do with CRM and I'm constantly bugging Andy and Ken and getting extra things, we should pay for that. And right now, Indiana is actually approved spending $250 a month earmarked for the CRM project. So we want to pay national for the service that we get. We're not doing it yet because we have a fear that somebody may try to cancel it through CRM. So we don't want to commit to getting $250 a month for a project that we may have to change. But the average affiliate comes in at $0, and then somebody else is $150, and somebody else is $250 or $300. So it's based level where the more time you're using for the staff,
Evan,
the more you pay.
Mr. McMahon, time has expired on this issue. We could.
Okay. I'm gonna move to extend time by 30 minutes.
Good. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any objection?
I object to it. I can't object, I'm sorry. I'm an LP.
I will object on his behalf.
On his behalf?
But I would object to the purpose that I think we would have a significantly more detailed discussion if we would make that an executive session as opposed to session. I think we would have more limited discussion on financials, which seems to be the hang up.
I think the only thing involved in the financials that we have to discuss in executive session would be staff salaries.
Yep.
As was pointed out earlier, when we're looking at total line items.
Oh, I'm aware.
Okay, we're on a motion.
Yeah, we're on motion. So, okay, so we have one objection. Do we want to do just yes or no? Show of hands. Okay. So we'll do a show of hands vote. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, when we voted.
Same time, 30 minutes. Yeah, 30 minutes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13. All those opposed? 1. Motion passes.
What was the count?
13-1. 13-1.
Okay.
Any express extension?
You don't ask for extensions. That's what happened.
All right. Request for information. So we started, hold on 1 second, we started the timer over now, and I do have the bodies of the Tyler, the executive director, who's going to be queued next, and will be anybody who objects to the Anybody? You object to the Tyler speaking?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna let Tyler speak then, okay. Yeah, you are in line after Tyler, correct? Yes, so Tyler's next, Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tyler Harris, Executive Director for the OWL. So there's been some discussion of speculating about the financial impact on potential future fundraising between now and 2024. I think that for some historical context from the staff perspective, the dynamic with all previous discussions of the Razor's Edge migration have been essentially to oversimplify things. And my staff looks very nervous in the back of the room right now. But to oversimplify things, a technology team that is eager to move forward and a development team that is saying this product is not ready to provide us the tools we need. That is, as I understand it, not the dynamic as we sit here today. And as I'm sure this board can probably emotionally resonate with in some sense, when you have conflicting interests that suddenly you find harmonized, there's something there to think about. Now, I don't want to speak too deeply on behalf of our development director, so I was wondering if the body might offer Gabrielle Cordova the indulgence to maybe respond to the question that Mr. Hagopian posed earlier, namely between now and 2024, would the loss of Razor's Edge at the end of this year put you in a position where you feel like you do have some lost fundraising opportunity, or is that no longer a concern, or do you think you'd be more effective out of Civic?
There's a question posed by Tyler Harris to our development director.
I move that we give the floor to Gabby.
Can I make a point of order?
I don't think it needs to be moved. If there's no objection, there's no. It's fine.
There was.
Go ahead.
Thank
Talk.
you. No, so I do believe that Angie and I need to meet more because a lot of my time has been spent in Razor's Edge, reporting within Razor's Edge, but there is a delay. When I get receipts, email receipts, those are coming straight from Civi, and I get excited, all right, donations are coming in, but I have to wait a day, 2 days, sometimes a week. After convention, I had to wait over a week before I could do any reporting within NXT. So there is a delay, and because of that, I feel like there is a delay with fundraising as well. Something else that Civi has that Risha doesn't is all that state giving. So if I want to know a donor's capacity, I have to first go into Civi, find out if they're given to their state or not, and then go back into Razor's Edge and and just compare that information. I would love to just work with one database. My first job, we were in the middle of the migration from Donor Perfect to Salesforce. So I have that migration experience of learning a new system. So I'm really excited to get this thing going, and I feel it'll just be so much easier.
I'd just like to make a point of order, just as the discussion was mischaracterized. My question was not whether we would lose money due to the Razor's Edge migration. It was whether we could make more money if 7 more states were on Civi prior to the election.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. You are in the queue, by the way.
I apologize.
Next in the queue is,
Yes, thank you. But I wanted to, I think it's pretty clear that our entire staff is absolutely in favor of this migration.
Yes.
And I think you should just give them exactly what they want.
Yes.
And I think, to the point that Razor's Edge, the licensing alone is, and that's the real cost here, in addition to our staffers' time, both the IT and development, with delays in fundraising, and the time they spent with these currently moving the data around. But that $60,000, which is currently in our budget and will be freed up next year, is a tremendous capability because IT's been telling us this whole time they need more support, they need more help, and if we can pay for more development, anything that could possibly be missing from losing from Razor's Edge could just be added into development for the city. So I think it's an absolute slam dunk to just go ahead and just give them the freedom to do exactly what they want.
awesome, thank you so much.
They said so, no one said so.
Next in the queue is Rick.
Thank you, Joseph Beckman, Region 6. I really resonate with a couple things brought by our guest from Indiana and Andy. And that is the opportunity to use one of our most vital assets we have as a mission-driven party, which is our volunteers, which is people who will volunteer to contribute to help become developers. It's one of those things where when I think about this idea of the gamified path of how to actually reward people for doing things that we could pay for, IT development is something that we have a disproportionate number of coders and developers in our movement that want to find ways to contribute. And this, if it's open source, if it's something that we can provide them avenues to help develop and integrate with well, I think that we can actually save even more money than just our staff costs and licensing costs and all these extra labor and frustration by our staff. So I would vote in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Rick. Next in the queue is Karen.
Okay, and I'm probably gonna end up making an unpopular motion, but that's never stopped me before. Okay, here, it seems to me we're avoiding one question. We need to have one system, whether it's City CRM or another system. I'm not trying to give Andy a heart attack. I'm just trying to clarify things here. I think if we're staying with City CRM, moving over to Razor's Edge over is a no-brainer. Staff wants it. One system, no matter what the system is. My concern now, I had the executive director concern, but my concern also is that our chair and our treasurer aren't comfortable with this right now. And staff can be all on board, but if all of your officers aren't on board, there's going to be a problem. So here's my unpopular motion. I'm moving to postpone this decision until our next LNC meeting to give our chair and our treasurer time to get their questions and concerns answered, because I don't want a divided LNC on this issue. I can tell you my inclination is to vote yes. However, I don't want to be at odds with my fellow officers.
I object.
I object.
Then a motion goes.
I'll have a motion to postpone till our budget.
Second.
I'll second.
Is it, you got a point of information?
Well, I just
Would you like to go with you?
personal privilege. I don't think these two will be the least bit problematic if the LNC, I'm talking about the officers, who I don't think that there will be unpleasant.
Would you like to go with you?
That's what the secretary said, that they would be
Ask
at
the
odds
question.
with us. They'll be right on board. I'm just saying, I think the president and the treasurer, the chair and the treasurer will be totally on board with whatever this board decides. We are in harmony.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate
I
it.
don't.
Okay. You guys wanted to queue. Dustin, you're already in the queue, but not yet. I put you in the queue. You're also in the queue. Yeah, and I have to remember there's 2 Dustins now as well. But I do have Mr. Rich Bell next in the queue.
Yeah, I guess I have to speak on the, amendment, on the, yeah. Now, I made my objective again, and I have other about the original motion, so I'll yield. But I do object.
Thank you very much. Let's see, Mr. Nana, you're next. Would you like to speak to the motion to postpone?
Yeah, that does not give us enough time to complete the migration like you're saying, which means that we have to trigger another year of rate set, which means we might as well just do it at the end of next year, and do it at the end of next year. And this is the discussion we keep having over and over again on this board. It needs to be done, and it needs to be done now.
Thank you very much. I have Dustin Blankenship next. Do you want to speak to him? Yeah, there's a lot of people. A whole lot of people. Mr. Blankenship, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, very much related to that. I was curious, obviously we know the impact of the delay, but I would also wonder in terms of time and if there's a cost associated with the delay, we weren't able to migrate within this year, would we then have more costs associated with that because of that?
Very likely with the Vice Indulgence, I think.
Yeah, I can probably answer that. So, Razor's Edge, we pay a contract annually, January 1. So that's, once we hit January 1, that's another 12 months.
Okay, thank you. The next one is gonna be Todd, and then Angela will be after that. So
I'll pass.
Okay, Angela, you're next.
Okay. I'm gonna ask very specific questions. I do not want anyone to tell me a long story. I want bullet point precise answers because that's gonna help us wrap this up, okay? Strictly information, I don't care otherwise. One of the things that Andy raised, and this is regarding the motion to postpone because this is the information I need to understand how I'm gonna make this vote. You mentioned like working on the e-canvasser thing, and that it was like $7,000 and that it would cost 15 to 25K with an outside developer. I need to understand, are there more examples of those sort of cost savings? And if we migrate into, if we dump Razor's Edge, great, we save money. We go into Civi. How much more money has to go into Civi to get Civi operational? Because what I'm afraid that I'm about to be rushed into a vote on is I'm not actually saving $35,000. I'm getting asked down the road to dump another $30,000 or $50,000 or more into Civi. And that's my concern. My concern is not moving to one CRM. That makes perfect sense, especially if our development director wants to do it. I don't want to set us up for frustration and failure 6 months. I don't want this budget item to grow and grow and grow. This is like, it could potentially be insane. So walk me back from that scenario. That'll help me decide if I can vote on this now or later.
Hold on. I'll put you in queue. Ms. Barlow, who would you like to hear?
Andy, who's in over.
With the body's indulgence.
I have an example.
I'm gonna bring Andy. Everyone relax. I'm gonna bring Andy back up here, okay, to answer the question that was posed on the floor. Andy, would you like to answer? Thank you. Dustin, you're back in.
All right.
Question being the examples of, like developments, you're saying.
How we're, so that you're like, I did an in-house process. Are there other situations where that's?
We got like, I mean, the bid pay and everything, the bid pay, we're not in a executive session.
Speak loud into the owl.
Development generally it costs much lower, either, I mean, I'm working with some of the Mises developers that you get in Chase and Austin, first names only basis on things, so, and development is always much lower with Civi, and you build it, and then you have other people maintain it, and truthfully, we are taking advantage of tons of other things that Wikimedia and other organizations have developed, and so that you get tons of value that way. But you did say to get it operational, e-canvasser connection operational, or Civi CRM is totally operational. It's way past operational. Indiana, it's essential for them. So these developments, that's why we can do whatever we wanted to do. Adding on states, dividing my time, maybe you need to, reconsider my time, how much time you need from me. That can lower costs, but I know my rate is very low to doing CRM level work, and it's not all that, but there are times when I'm doing that work and it's the bang for the buck is there. I'm happy to do that for the libertarian organizations like this, right? But yes, there's more and more examples of
Okay, there's more
development.
examples. Okay, so now let's think about how much money needs to additionally go into CRM. Is that,
Well, what are you wanting to do? If we're just replacing Razor's Edge, we are literally proposing to do that right now on
But
staff time.
there's two issues here. The motion is about Razor's Edge. So, one second, Evan. One second.
Mr. Malden, wait 1 second, you're in the queue.
The motion is about Razor's Edge. But what it is also doing, without saying it, is telling us we are gonna stick with city. And there are some states that are mad about it and don't like it, and there are some states, obviously Indiana, Kentucky, that are diehard all in. But by dumping Razor's Edge right now, theoretically, I have no issue with it. I want developers to be happy and we be happy. It puts a lot of pressure on us to all adopt CRM and be all in. And I need to know, what does that look like in the next couple of years? Because I'm concerned it's gonna ask for more money or more resources.
That's where, we've been developing a plan to do basically contract with National.
Okay.
For National to be the owner of the system, service provider here, and other contractors potentially, but a fixed budget to National. And then states get the baseline support, but we would end up being a subscription model. So we're looking at, we did a ballpark. We could be, 15,000, 20,000 from states. We also, and then on top of that, looking at more of the, you want this feature, states want this feature, National probably wants this feature, right? And so we end up doing more project-based fundraising, and it does not become a cost.
Thank you, that helps.
All right, awesome. So next in the queue, I have Mr. Elliott, and then Mr. Molman, and then Karen and Carlos. Is there anybody else seeking to be, okay, it's 4. Okay, give me 1 second here, guys. All right.
We're on the postpone.
Right, yeah, correct. Okay, so next in line is Brian Elliott.
All right, Brian Elliott at large, new to the organization, the unofficial risk manager for the organization, and my skill set is organizational behavior, process, systems, and the like. This, as I listen to this discussion and knowing anecdotally about the long historical drama here, it seems to me this is a simple financial analysis question. We make a spreadsheet. We say, and this is where Todd was going, we say, here's option 1. Here's what it costs.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. This is not on the postponement.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, we're supposed to be talking about the postponement. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sidetracks, do you have anything pertaining to the?
If we don't do this analysis properly, we're gonna blow ourselves up.
Okay, thank you very much. With the body's indulgence, Ken Molman has been trying to get with you, and he's next. He has a lot of information pertaining to stuff, so, but the current argument on the floor is about the postponement of this issue, Mr. Molman, so if you could remember that, please, Mr. Molman.
All right, just real quick on the issue specifically of postponement. The timing of this is critical. If you don't want a rush job to get it done by the end of the year, it needs to start now. And that's why we're bringing it now. Ideally, we would have brought it at the previous meeting, but we were ready. Obviously, last convention, we very happy convention and everything. Will be chaotic there. I may have been intoxicated. Sorry. But if we were ready, the numbers that are being asked for, that's been done at least partially. In the report that has been provided, we've shown what the actual real cost of the party is above and beyond the maintained Razor's Edge. And this isn't some new idea, right? We tried to go down this path for the last year and a half, 2 years, something like that. And it's been our roadmap all along. It was originally a 5-year roadmap for this project. And in the original roadmap, year 4, which is essentially where we're at, was looking at the rate of edge migration. So this is a matter of saving money over time. The timing is absolutely critical. I have other stuff on things that other people said they're not going to make the motion in, so I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen, I appreciate it.
Vice Chair?
Thank you. Next in the line, I have Ken Emerald.
I'm moving to call a question on the postponement since it seems everyone wants to debate.
Absolutely, I don't disagree with you. There's been a motion, it's been seconded to call the question on whether or not we postpone this motion. Is there any objections? We do have one objection from Mr. Elliott, so we will go to a vote. You want to do a roll call?
So you want to do roll call?
Yeah.
I'll come to you now with that order. Mr. Benner?
No on postpone.
Mr. Blankenship?
Hold on, this is to call the question.
Oh, yeah, yes. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
to call the question, you don't need a roll.
Okay, you want to do a hand vote?
I don't think any, does anyone?
There was one.
There was an objection, yes.
There was an objection.
Oh, okay.
That's why I asked. Yeah. Do you want to do a hand vote?
Can you get for that?
We can just do a hand, all in favor of calling the question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all those opposed? Okay, passes over here. So we are back to, now we're gonna vote on postponing
Yeah.
This motion.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes, Chair.
Let's please explain what a yes vote does and no vote does.
Correct. Yes vote with those comments, did the motion was there?
Till the November.
Till the November meeting. So we postpone this, this issue until the November meeting, with a yes vote. No vote would make us immediately start taking.
Request for information.
Yes, sir.
I believe the motion was postponed to the next LNC review.
The November meeting.
I said the budget meeting.
The budget meeting, okay, that's the November meeting, correct? Absolutely. So again, one more time, the yes vote would postpone this until November at our next in-person meeting. A no vote would make us immediately take up the question of the original motion.
Request for information?
Yes, ma'am.
When is Razor's Edge, when is the contract due?
Annual.
Yeah, take it.
Annual January 1.
Okay, everybody knows what we're voting on.
One other question, please. Is that at all negotiable?
We've asked for monthly previously, they refused to do monthly, and in fact, they usually insist we do 3-year. And I have to argue it down to 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
Point of clarification on
So you point of information on the motion?
just so I understand.
Okay, go ahead.
What precludes us, can we have a discussion about the date, because November
No.
seems to me.
Because the motion is to take this issue up at the next LNC meeting. So there is no more discussion here. Is there any more points of information? Okay, with that, we're gonna do a roll call.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Benner?
No.
Mr. Blankenship?
No.
Mr. Bowen?
No.
Mr. Duque? Mr. Eklund?
No.
Ms. Eilers?
No.
Mr. Elliott?
No.
Mr. Ford?
No.
Ms. Gabbard?
No.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
I am going to vote yes. Mr. Nana?
No.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Ms. McCarty? Okay, Mr. Chair, it is 3 yes, 10 no, 1 abstention. Okay.
I will not. So we are back to the main motion. And how much time do we have?
8 minutes.
We have 8 minutes left on this motion.
Well, Mr. ALT's called the question, if I can.
You cannot. Sorry. I will let you know that there's 3 people in queue.
Let's
See
have
who can speak.
we can do that, everybody.
All right, cool. But those people came into the queue for.
I was trying to get the queue on this as well.
Okay, I can put you in the queue if you'd like.
I would like to.
Okay, all right.
No, all the question stops for that.
Mr. Chair.
All the question stops.
Nobody's called the question yet,
He
sir.
did.
No, you cannot. He is in the queue behind other people. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Is it point of information?
I just want to make sure I'm in the queue.
Okay.
This is what
Yes, I have you in the queue. You're right after Mr. Ford, who is first on deck. I have you in the, I have you in
Point
the queue.
of personal privilege.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Can I make a motion to extend time?
I think that we can entertain that, yeah. We do have about 6 minutes left.
I think this is an important enough issue, I would like to make a motion to extend for
And then additional 15 minutes, and you think that'll be enough time?
if we'll do it again.
Okay, that's totally fine with me. There's a motion to extend time for 15 minutes. There's a second, is there any objections?
Yeah.
One objection, thank you, sir, I appreciate it. And this could be, Mr. Bennett. Those test you guys. Okay, there's one objection. All in favor of extending time for 15 minutes? Okay, more people, everyone who's in favor, please raise your hand now. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4.
That passes as long as.
8 4. Yep, okay, 8 4. Motion passes, we are extended to 15 minutes. And Mr. Ford, you're first in the queue. Would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, it's more of a general question, if you will. Throughout my brief periods of time on the LNC, I have received a number of entreaties about outsourcing and going to an outside body. Again, this is not me proposing to do so. However, it's been a serious source of concern for a strong minority of individuals. It appears our chair is also inquiring as to whether or not, in my mind, are we going to institutionalize with this motion now, city CRM formally, or are we going to expand upon our, I think, board-driven responsibility to occasionally engage in analysis of past decisions. I think it was called relitigating the decision. I don't need to do that. But I'm just wondering, from a directional viewpoint, is this board going to essentially formally institutionalize CRM by this actions now, or is there going to be an opportunity to reconsider? That's my open question.
Okay, thank you very much. Next in the queue, I have Mr. Clark.
Okay, so I'm in sales and I've gone through a few different CRM migrations. And talking about doing something other than city CRM, I'd like to ask Andy, based on your experience, if we were, because if you're just looking at the annual cost compared to, what was talked about like an outside CRM, like what that subscription cost is, that would not, just looking at that, there's a question, but what would you think the cost, based on your experience, to migrate to a complete, like if we started this whole process over, how long would that take and how much do you estimate that would cost?
With the board's indulgence, would you guys be okay with that? I'm not fixing that.
Experience, like a nation builder or Salesforce, what would that cost?
Yes. What Angela was talking about, I don't remember the names of the CRM.
HubSpot or.
Yeah. So you have the subscription cost, but there's also the time, then all of the people around the country who are currently using CRM having to relearn this new tool, there's impact there. And then there's also the cost of the actual migration.
Correct, yeah, the actual migration, previous IT, Robert, you want?
I can answer in a basic sense. Previous boards have looked at Nation Builder, and then a prior chair insisted we go to Salesforce. So when we looked at Nation Builder, I pretty much insisted we just do a test for the 2016 convention. And after suffering through that test, we decided no way in hell would we ever want to kill with Nation Builder again. And the expense, you're not only paying the expense of having them host your database, but you're paying the user for user expenses. And it's a lot of our states learned on Nation Builder, it just became to a point where it's unaffordable. Many of our states had to get off Nation Builder, they simply could not afford it any longer. Right now they're getting CRM for free. Then our next chair decided Salesforce is it. That's what I use at work. That's what we're going to. I'm bringing in all my Salesforce people, and I don't care what the board thinks. I'm going to force this down everybody's throat. And the second they started talking to them about what it would cost, the migration cost alone was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because what they charge was consulting fee, right? So you're paying somebody to do this migration, and they're saying, well, we only include this much time, but looking at your database and 100,000 records or 200,000 records, cut down your records. That would really help. But if you're estimating you might be 500,000 records then, the whole migration might end up with all the consulting time, be 11 to 12 months, and it could easily run into a couple $100,000. And then your hosting fees each year were approximately $70,000. But that's a limited number of users. So now if you're now talking about adding the states in, they have to buy their individual licenses at a separate cost to the state, right? They wouldn't give us, 51 licenses plus the licenses we need for staff. It was each state had to buy in to Salesforce by themselves with their own licenses with limited number of users. Now they want their county affiliates to do it, well, the county has to buy because that's what the Democrats do. They basically put that kind of stuff.
So
your follow-up to.
I have one more question on my list. That's okay. It's kind of related because we're talking about if we have to make this decision now, right? Are we stuck with city CRM? So my question is.
Well, we have to make this decision now because we're voting.
Yeah, no, hold on. So but here's my question. Do you think you will spend more than the annual subscription to renew Razor's Edge? Like, will the cost to finish the Razor's Edge migration cost more or less than the next annual subscription?
Sorry, so the cost to migrate?
Yeah, with the so we're at 70%, right? That last 30% getting off of Razor's Edge, do you think that's gonna internally cost us more or less than the subscription coming up?
Definitely less.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we may have to engage in some consultants a little bit, but basically I'm offering to do this at my normal pay, which is in the greens.
So the question then becomes, if we finish that, we're not just looking at, now we're stuck with city CRM. If we want to have a conversation about going somewhere in the future, we could still get off of Razor's Edge for less cost and have that tied up, and then we can have a conversation about the future.
Thank you very much. Next in the queue, I have Donovan Pankey.
Yes, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that there's a lot of opportunity here to actually finish a project. And I think that there's very little to be said here about actually finishing one thing that we do before starting the next thing that we do, actually scoring a victory. Regardless of whether or not anybody even likes Civi, even if you hate Civi, it's a bonus to say we finished a migration to the CRM. And obviously, as we've heard from staff over the long history of this party, new boards come up and question the CRM decisions that the previous board has done every 2 years. So to say that somehow by finishing a project that was started by the previous LNC means we endorse the decision of this LNC to keep this system, I don't think is valid. I think we should just finish what we started, get onto this, and then we're all too happy to, bring all the questions up in the air with the 2023 budget, with whatever future LNC meeting that we do.
Thank you, Mr. Pankey. Next in the queue, did you have a call?
I just want information. Sure. If this gets voted down and fails, voted down, is there any way procedurally for us to revisit it in the future?
It can always be renewed at any meeting. Each session has its freedom.
What about in an email motion or?
It can be that, once this adjourns, it can be renewed at any time.
Before we move on, we do have about 10 minutes left on this discussion, but people do need to go check out their rooms very soon, within the next 20 minutes. So if we could try to wrap this up, otherwise we'll have to postpone until after people.
I call the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
There is a motion to call the question.
Wait, was he next in line?
Yes, he was.
Yes, okay.
You're right. There's been a second to call the question. This is a non-debatable motion. Call the question.
It's not debatable.
Correct.
And we need the purpose.
Yes, exactly. And we want to do a hands. Okay, so all those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, all those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in favor of calling the question. All those opposed? 1. Motion passes.
Okay.
So we're moving on to a vote of the main motion, which is to,
One moment, I read. Mr. Nana moved that we prioritize the Razor's Edge migration with the goal of completion by the end of the year and to not renew our resubscription in January unless we are not finished by that term.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there anybody who doesn't understand how your vote works for that motion? Okay, perfect. For this motion, we will be taking a roll call. Madam Secretary?
Wait, one moment. What?
Wait, one.
Oh, well, no, I want to have your motion correct. So it says not renew our Razor's Edge subscription. I didn't understand it's a revision. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
All right, we're gonna take a roll call vote for this. Are you ready for that?
Yes, I am. Mr. Danner?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Bowen?
Yes.
Mr. Duque? Mr. Eklund?
Yes.
Ms. Eiler? Yes. Mr. Elliott?
Abstain.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
No.
I am going to vote yes. Mr. Nana?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Watkins?
No.
Mr. Chair, it is 9 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. McCarty. Okay, Mr. Chair, it is 9 yes, 2 no, 2 express consent. Yeah, I don't.
All right, motion passes. At this point, a lot of people do need to check out of their hotel rooms. Would anybody want to put forth a motion?
Motion to recess.
What's that?
Motion to recess.
There is a motion to recess for 15. It's been seconded. Is there any?
Thank you, guys.
Hold on. We're in the
I
middle
was
of.
just say, remember, we'll be online during the
Okay,
recess.
order. That's the gavel. Is there any objection to?
How long is the recess?
15. Okay, excuse me. Is there any objections? Okay, motion passes. See you guys in
Wow.
10:57.
And we all agree 100%.
No, it was good. We had like serious. Like we're really
You know, it's defer to the room.
Or Nana. I think even if now I'm a city, but even if it's
I have a vice chair going, please God almighty. We just got done getting onto this. The thing is that there's no new budget for stuff. That's where
Very easy to slide down.
yeah, we're going to talk about is this.
Yeah, but I mean, I've only.
Finish it. Yeah.
I'm not. And also, it's our list of things to see what happens. And again, we can't higher, but like, make it lower. I want everyone. I mean,
mean, I understand talking to, state party and talking about everything. Run into.
It is because, I mean, you have a huge disposal of people in your district or whatever at your fingertips.
Right.
You can make pie charts based on if people join your plan. They tell you what things like we have. What things are interested in. Make a pie chart of it. Look at who you've got to support what issues. It's so valuable. I'm surprised more people.
Well, I mean, well, you know, some people, let's say, you know, and well, and in those cases, that's, you know, it doesn't matter what action you take. It's like, it's like, okay, there you go.
Yeah, because like, I can't even say that word is
You're savvy enough, you're getting there. You know that.
Yeah, I have no, so I'm actually.
Libertarian, I'll be at this.
Well, I know these things are always whirlwinds, but you know, I'll be off the job.
Yes, that's awesome.
I don't want to think about
Right.
Yes.
We're not throwing good money it's to our own family.
So yeah, don't forget, I've got 7 right, once you get that, yeah, once you get 16, 17, 18, 19, but
That's what, so
it's not right in that pocket. Those are the hardest. I have to talk to you. Yeah, you know, I mean, what so. So if it's going to be successful, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever next this will have, like, she will check this. Unless it's something that's very
Yeah, because it's on the scale that you
I watched, it's not about where. Yeah. So that's where I'm even though we don't now, there's we'll be on 15,000 now. No, well, I mean, we get a lot of so I work in the whole software.
You were well heard.
But an optimized CRM like we do on because it's not, they don't hold things separately. Just because they are, yeah, they're doing what we're doing. And so they're trying to, that's how we're trying to follow
Well, California is on neon, so that's the question I wanted to ask. I kind of listened, I had a few questions, but I couldn't get them all out, so, but it was like, what are the hesitations that state?
So my trade-off with them is like they have got to, I request training as part of this, like they've got to be, it's got to be. And I'm down with it.
The other thing that I was brought up is also something, I didn't think too much, I can't talk about, but what he has right here, like, you know, there's.
I love how the most contentious issue has been over IT. Until this is our
Yeah, but I think that his answer has been historically, yes, because of the risk of third party, or, you know, counterparty, right, like, posting all our data on something like in the US or something like that, and then we actually start making the approach to the state, and they bring it and swap us out.
We're almost forced to do it, not so much to have some work, but in general, like that's what
I think you have to check out the line, I don't want to do it. So, be right back.
think that's a good one.
Yeah, like anybody that signs like and so when you your area or whatever, yeah, it's weird because like I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but it's like to have like regional affiliates, not just but a lot of times once you have you get like 5 companies together and then so our you can do that, you can have a conglomerate affiliate of but another problem is the way our SEC is set up, it's not done by like how many affiliates you have, it's congressional. You can have an affiliate that falls under congressional. So like, so there's so many different, yeah. Yeah, so that's why
Hey guys, we have a couple of people who are still checking out. Okay, we are back in order. At 11:01 a.m. and we're gonna stand at ease for a moment while I see if we're missing people.
I just have to do my job.
Okay.
We got, I will, but I can argue.
Mr. Smith. Did you see Pat out there?
I saw Pat was in line, yeah.
Okay, Pat's in line. Okay.
There was one other, maybe they're back.
We're missing staff too.
I think they checked it out.
They checking out?
I believe.
I did see,
I know Andy went.
I did see, Gabby and, her husband, yes, Eric.
Okay, we're gonna stand at ease for a couple of minutes, but not 2 weeks.
A little bit.
And let's actually take a look. No amendments. Did everybody have copies?
It's all on there.
Okay, let's see here.
Under new business.
So while we're waiting on a couple people to come back in the room, it would probably be great to look in the OneNote at new business with previous notice, so that you can be familiar with what we're going to be addressing soon on the agenda, and there's policy manual amendments. So take a look at that.
Could we, Madam Secretary?
Yes?
We did change we amended the agenda yesterday to add, the Idaho discussion.
Yeah, that's under new business without previous notice.
I'm gonna check the line, I'll be right back.
There's no documents associated with that yet,
Okay.
so that's why there's nothing in the OneNote. But it's on the agenda, if you look under housekeeping, it's a Sunday amended agenda. I think it's the first item on there.
Okay. And that's very nice. I'm wondering how I should send out all that information from Idaho.
I can send, well, is it public?
It hasn't been made public yet.
But is it going to be made public at the meeting?
Yes, and I
Then
don't
I
think,
would put it on the LNC.
okay, and I don't think it needs, let me just skim over it one more time to make sure. I didn't see anything about salaries or anything like that, so. They do have the entire report of JC on there. This is bylaw. Yes, I think I can send this all.
I just lost 2 more people. Did anybody see Andrew?
Check out.
Obviously, every month.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Easy time.
All right, good. Josh?
Yeah, I gotta leave at 2:30.
Yes.
Treasurer.
Yes.
So what happens?
The
body
We'll need to make sure, because I think we'll be crossing. Well, the other thing you can do is go ahead and check out your level.
Yes, that might be better, unless we get a late check out. All right.
And the treasurer. This was, yeah, no, this was. So actually.
We just got.
All right, I lost Dustin and Connor. They just like wandered upstairs. This is not okay because I needed to make some sort of comment and now I've lost them. So, does anyone have their?
Your cat heard in.
Anybody want to come? No, I reject it. It's not serving my Really not? Are we live streaming still? I hope so.
It's the lights on, I assume it's live.
Hey, Jim Dustin, man.
Put them on voice, put it on speaker.
You gotta.
Your parents are listening.
Stay fresh, cheese ball.
He's not answering. Yes.
He's celebrating.
Madam Chair, if I could say something on the board real quick. I just emailed to the LNC public list all the information that I received from the Sorensen Chair Board in Idaho that turned into the motion I'll be making later today to have a special meeting. So you guys have all that information. I do have a request in to an Imhoff email. I don't know if it's still the correct email to get information from them as well. If somebody else has a better email to reach out to them for, or somebody who's not me can reach out to them and ask for it, that'd be great. I doubt I'll ever get anything back from them
but that's because I
Why?
was the deciding vote to remove the California.
We'll find someone who's had.
Someone's gonna have to do it.
Yeah, we'll find someone. Okay, I am going to walk out of this room and I'm going to bring our two other board members in here.
By this year.
And then
I don't have Connor's number.
we're going to get down.
I got Connor's.
You can start the meeting without that.
Physical
That's
rules.
okay.
So to speak.
It's not out of order to start without.
She's gonna go grab it. I wasn't supposed to. They're probably going to their car.
I can go to work.
Yeah.
That's probably why I can't sleep.
That's a lot of shifts.
No,
Yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah, because I only, generally.
Know all about trade. We don't use trade. Oh, sorry, man. Big orange.
All right. I got almost everyone. All right. We got almost everyone. We're back. We're no longer good. So thank you, everyone, especially thank you, staff, because I feel much more comfortable with our decision knowing staff's position. Much better. Andy's not in the room. I could track Andy down. Andy answered a bunch of questions that no one was answering before, which makes me feel a lot better about everything we just did. So I'm just letting you all know. I had major concerns. Most of them were addressed, which I think is very important. So now let's go on to our next agenda item, which is placed on the agenda by our secretary, Ms. Carlos. Would you like to speak to your agenda items?
Well, first I'd like to make a motion to see if I get a second and then we'll speak to it. So, I have 4 policy manual amendments. The first one, which has changed slightly since I first gave notice of it after speaking with Mr. Nana, who had a concern, and I agreed with his concern. So I would move to delete policy manual section 2.01.6 electronic communication, and then amend 2.01.5 by retaining the last paragraph from the deleted section. That is in OneNote, the amended, let me find it, and I'll stick it up on the screen. Second previous notice.
Electronic communication.
Yes, so, if there's a second, I'll speak to it.
I'll second.
Thank you. The section on electronic communication, almost everything in there is already covered under rules of behavior in Robert's Rules of Order. It's just basic professional communication, and then some things that really have no place in a policy manual, such as you're not allowed to BCC anybody if you're emailing the business list. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think that's the position of this board to tell people they can't BCC somebody. If it's a transparency issue and I want to BCC Star Child, I'm telling you, the policy manual is not going to stop you from doing that. You wouldn't know because it's a BCC. So it just seems like really a lot of nannying, and the things that are worthwhile in there are already covered under Roberts. However, the last paragraph, Mr. Nana spoke to me about, which was getting the EPCC involved if there's issues with staff. And it says should and not shall. So it's a strong suggestion. So I would like to delete all of electronic communication, which shortens the policy manual by a page and a half or a page, and move paragraph 10, which says concerns, it's not the last paragraph, not LNC, when I messed up? No, it's concerns regarding staff, not the last paragraph. So it says concerns regarding a staff member's behavior should be reported to the Employment Policy and Compensation Committee, and it goes on to say what the EPCC will do. That one thing, I agree, should be retained, but there's a better section for it, which would be section number 5 under obligations among board members and staff. So that is my motion, and I believe I've spoken to it enough. well, there's one other sentence. This was added last term. And this is another section that was weaponized inconsistently. Joshua got censured for allegedly violating part of that. Meanwhile, in everything to do with me, that LNC violated the whole section. So we don't need these kinds of things that are going to be used to single out people for selective treatment. If someone is truly misbehaving, this is all we need to deal with. We don't need this in our policy manual. We could spell out everything in the possible world in our policy manual, and it would be, longer than a bill in Congress. So I don't think we want that. So I've spoken enough, I think, to it, unless there are any objections. I think to address.
Seconded. Tyree seconded. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Nice try.
We'll have a request for information, and we're going to go over to Mr. Smith.
Mark together, Madam Chair, you established a committee relative to bylaws. When the body was charged of that committee is what kind of time frame we're working with? Am I correct? We have a bylaws committee?
This is policy manual.
I beg your pardon, I meant policy manual. I beg your pardon,
Policy
So,
manual.
in charge of it, how long they're taking to do their work?
Well, they're just getting started, so they don't have a timeline yet. But the members of that committee are Ms. Marlowe, Ms. Gavich, and Mr. Elliott.
If I may, Madam Chair, if I can answer, also, even though we are working on revising the policy manual, we're governed by it as it is right now.
Sure.
So I do think we still need to make changes along the way, and it will make it a little shorter for us three to review.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. Smith, LNC Vice Chair, I agree with Karen Ann, and I hope you guys will vote. It's unneeded. It's been weaponized by the past two, at least as long as I've been around, the past two boards, very inconsistently, and like she said, we actually didn't violate the policy manual as it said should, not shall, while the rest of the board violated the entire policy manual on those issues. And then we were censured and removed. So it's just something that's not needed. It's way out there. It's inconsistently weaponized against all kinds of people. And I think this board is not going to have a problem with that. I hope and I believe and I'm optimistic for that. But future boards could, and I think that saving the time and the drama now and doing it when we can is a good idea. So I hope you guys will vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Mr. Ford and Mr. Goodwin.
I rise in support of this. No wiser words I've ever heard were from the LPRI treasurer who once said, and I'll remove the expletives, for a bunch of weeping anarchists, we have a bunch of weeping rules. Okay? My personal reflection, I was accused of projecting. Anyone who knows me knows I don't project. All right, I'm projecting by somebody who chose to quote unquote workshop a end around of our processes to try and borrow a couple $100,000. The rule is this nonsense, this politics of personal destruction by the use of obscure bylaws and obscure policy manuals has simply got to end. It's got to end now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ford.
We call the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any objections to calling the question? Going once, going twice. Question is called. Okay, we're going to go to a vote. Ms. Harlow, would you mind restating the motion?
Certainly, let me state it, and this would require roll call. Just put it in here. I move to delete policy manual 2.01.6, electronic communication, and amend 2.01.5 by retaining one paragraph in the deleted section, which was shown on the screen, which had to do with concerns with staff behavior.
Okay, let's go to a roll call vote. Secretary, would you like to?
Yes.
Do the honors? Okay.
Mr. Benner?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Bowen?
Yes.
Mr. GK? Yes. Mr. Eklund?
Yes.
Ms. Eiler?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nana?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yep.
Mr. Watkins?
Yep.
Madam Chair, that's 14 in favor, 0 no, 0 abstention.
Fantastic, it passes, thank you.
All right, on to my next one.
Let's do it.
Okay, this is to amend policy manual 1.0, excuse me, 1.01.3. Let me put that up on the screen from the OneNote. Okay, this has to do with the executive committee. I wish to add a sentence, so it would read, at least, that is a what, long sentence. So the sentence would now read, the executive committee shall exercise all powers of the LNC between LNC meetings. Here's the added language. When urgency demands a more immediate time frame than when the LNC can next meet, and the rest of the paragraph stays the same. If there's a second on this, I will speak to it.
Second.
Okay. Last term, there were multiple times the executive committee met when there was plenty of time to call an LNC meeting. And decisions should be made by the entire LNC whenever possible, or the policy manual says only the executive committee can do it, such as authorizing certain lawsuits. What it does, it resolves the LNC down into an even smaller body that was not elected by the delegates to make the decision. Now, I know the LNC can override the executive committee, but the fact is that rarely happens amongst colleagues, that is so rare and it just takes more time. The LNC can call a meeting within 5 days. The executive committee can meet within 2 days. So the executive committee should be reserved for things that have to be done very quickly. But if the entire LNC could meet, and I'm on the executive committee, so I'm trying to remove like some kind of special privilege I might have. But you guys are the ones who are elected to make decisions, not the smaller group, unless urgency really demands it.
Okay, next on deck we have Mr. Smith and Mr. Nash.
Yeah, this is pretty self-explanatory. It definitely needs to happen, so I'm gonna call a question.
All good? Okay, great. Okay, we're gonna go to another roll call vote, because I want to understand the motion and the amendment. By the way, it is in your OneNote. If you have any issues. Yeah. Stand by. Okay, there is on the screen.
Yeah, I just need to, I'm just gonna underline the added language there, so it makes it clear. All right, are we ready?
Let's go to a roll call vote. That's all right. Okay, here we go.
Mr. Benner?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Bowen?
Yes.
Mr. Buchanan? Mr. Eklund?
Yes.
Ms. Eiler?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nana?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Madam Chair, it's 14-0-0.
Fantastic. That motion passes. On to the next one we go.
Okay, just 1 second, because I need to note in my thing that Mr. Smith moved to end the day. So I don't forget that. Okay, the next one is to amend section 1.01.4. It's to add a section to 1.01, it would be section number 4, entitled Removal from Office. It would read, no party officer or at-large member shall be subject to removal from office except for failure to perform the duties of office or gross malfeasance. The process for removing officers and at-large members shall be the trial procedure as outlined in the party's parliamentary authority. The officer or at-large member's membership rights can be suspended by a 2/3 vote while the matter is being investigated if necessary to prevent potential harm to the party. If I have a second to this, I will speak to it.
Second.
Okay. I know, well, last convention determined that there is a right to trial, that my due process rights were violated at the last term. It's good though if we have this spelled out. Since this was already decided pretty much by the delegates that due process rights were violated, I do think it's our duty to clarify what those due process rights are. I consulted with the parliamentarian on what short language would be appropriate, and this is what was suggested to me by Jonathan Jacobs, who some of you may know. However, I added the last sentence. I always use this example, so don't take offense, Mr. Hadopian, but if you have a treasurer that's embezzling funds, you don't want to wait while a trial is undergoing. So that's why I put that the rights can be suspended by a 2/3 vote while the matter is being investigated, just in case you have something like that. So you're not waiting a month while someone could be doing great harm to the party. But I think this will resolve those issues. There are circumstances where you do have to remove somebody, but it shouldn't be because they made YouTube videos that you didn't watch. It should be because you have a secretary who's not taking minutes, or isn't, is failing to do what they were elected to do, or again, is committing fraud or something on the part. Our bylaws simply say for cause, which isn't defined. We're allowed to define it in our policy manual. And it doesn't say the process, it just says the vote threshold. So this defines what cause is and defines the process.
Mr. Smith?
I'd like to call a question.
I had a question. How do I do this?
Mr. Smith, would you agree?
I could be amenable to her saying her piece before the question is called.
Oh, it's a question, it's not saying.
Okay.
Does everyone understand what gross malfeasance means? That was my concern.
Everybody understand what?
What gross malfeasance means? I just wanted to check.
It's illegal.
Yeah. Would you like to speak to what gross malfeasance
Okay,
means?
no matter what we put in here, there is going to be some subjectivity. But this is less subjective than it is right now. I mean, there is case law. Gross malfeasance generally would be things like fraud. It's certainly, I can tell you more, it's a little bit like pornography, you know it when you see it type of thing. But I can tell you what it's not. It's not the things I was removed for. But if I, was conspiring with someone on the board to like steal donation money, that would be gross malfeasance. Beating up somebody on the board, in the middle of a meeting, going up and slapping somebody, that would be gross malfeasance. But exercising your free speech rights to criticize is not gross malfeasance.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure everybody understood what we were voting on before we went to. So,
Yeah, I've called a question. Yeah.
okay, great. So when the secretary is ready, we will go to a roll call.
Yep, let's get that
Thank you
into.
for answering that.
Totally good, yeah. There is a legal definition.
Is it mixed?
No, it's not mean tweets, it's not.
Yes, not me.
Making sure we all understand.
It's not monetizing your YouTube channel.
There we go.
None of that stuff, yeah.
Gross huge statements?
Please monetize, please monetize your YouTube channels. It's good. It's good.
All right, are we ready?
We shall go to a roll call vote in.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Buquet? Mr. Eklund?
Yes.
Ms. Eilish?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hadopian?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nana?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yep.
Madam Chair, it is 14-0-0.
Motion passes. I believe we have another.
Okay, I do have another one, and it is under the harassment and offensive behavior prohibition. As you can tell, there's a theme in my policy amendments. I'll say what it is, and I'll see if there's a second. This could be divided, by the way, but I'm making it as one motion. So under harassment and offensive behavior prohibition, where it is talking about certain behavior expectations, I wish to add the phrase while discharging official duties. And then later on in the red, I would like to delete the phrase, the sentence, the paragraph, I guess, that says any behavior, whether verbal or physical, that clearly offends a reasonable person, whether carrying or not, must be avoided. Libertarianism is a philosophy of respect for the individual, and it must not be presented as being in harmony with behavior generally regarded as offensive. Also want to delete the sentence that says the rule of thumb. If you think it might be offensive, it probably is. If there is a second on this, I will speak to it.
I'll second.
Okay. This goes beyond things I've already said before. I think when that first paragraph about any behavior that would be considered offensive by anybody, I think when this was written, people were a lot more reasonable. There isn't a thing.
That's optimistic.
Yeah. There isn't a thing you could say right now that is not going to offend somebody. Our whole platform offends people. So, if you notice, I left most of this section intact, like you shouldn't be sexually harassing people or, kind of things. I don't think that paragraph adds anything except for makes it impossible for us to say anything lately. Most things we say, I do think are offensive to some people. So as a rule of thumb, if you think it might be offensive, it is. Well, I couldn't talk about, to name a hot button issue. One of our positions is that private employers should be able to set rules of association for their business. Most people today find that highly offensive. Am I violating the policy manual by saying that? So the very vague things I wanted to remove here. The thing I wanted to add, while discharging official duties, do we really want to get into a position where, let's say, somebody might be in trouble domestically, like there's a divorce going on and there's accusations going on between spouses. Do we really want to go into these people's personal life to see if they're violating the policy manual? We've had complaints, emails from members. We actually had an official investigation at one point 2 terms ago into things done in people's personal life. I don't think this is what the policy manual should be about. I think it has to be about when we're clearly acting as LNC members. We all have personal lives, and I don't want this board intruding into the personal lives of people. So I do think, however, we do have to have certain standards of behavior when we are acting in our official duties. And one example I like to give is, people know in my personal life, I cuss like a sailor. You will never hear me cuss in an LNC meeting. You notice I even said before, ooh, or get off the line.
I have heard.
Well, maybe rarely, it would be a slip. But I don't believe in doing that at LNC meetings. I don't believe in doing that on the LNC list. But if you go to my Facebook page, I certainly believe in it. I do think there is a distinction between our personal lives and our official duties. So I want to set these standards in place very strictly for when we are acting in our official duties, but to leave our personal lives alone.
And then we have a
So I'm obviously gonna call a question, but before I do. I'm just kidding, I won't, I'm just kidding. No, I totally agree with this. She brings up the secretary brings up the issue of, going into somebody's personal lives. While on this very list, it says, quote, unwanted prying into a person's private life, okay? As someone who's been a victim of this repeatedly by members of this board, not this board, but prior boards, where they speculated about my situation with my children and my fiance, it was gross. That was gross malfeasance. And so this is really self-explanatory. It should have been done a long time ago. I think there needs to be protections for whistleblowers as well. This is all good stuff, so I don't think you guys will support it. And then I won't call the question. Somebody else can.
So we're all at the table, and everything we say and do is a reflection on our party and our candidates. That's not just when we act in our official capacity for meetings. It is still a reflection on us even when we're using our personal names. So to throw a couple of hypotheticals, I'll use Renee as my example. So
Linnea is arrested for beating up this big trucker in a bar and goes and convicts him from. And, so she is convicted of, this use of force. Is that a legal offense? Brian has, the SEC shows up at his doorstep for whatever reason, and says fraud has taken place, it's proven in court, and he's convicted of that. If the use of force or fraud, regardless whether it's part of our official actions or not, is not a disqualifying criteria for membership in this body, I don't know what is.
Mr. Nance?
Yeah, I'm not really speaking in favor or against, but I just want to say that at some point, everything becomes subjective. So I want to say that everything at some point becomes subjective. So like the example you gave, if a board member went out and got into a physical altercation with somebody in the hospital and then started with like a felony, assault. I would like to think that it would not be a violation even if this was passed and the policy manual removed them as such. You can view it that it is, or whatever language you put in the policy manual, it's up to us to police ourselves regardless of it. So
I'm gonna ask a question of Ms. Hartwell.
Yes.
There are some things that have come up right here. Was it your intention that the previous one we made, providing due process and spelling out those processes, is that sort of complementary to this?
It is.
Okay.
Because just as Mr. I'm sorry, I'm going to, if that's not grounds for removal, well, we just dealt with the removal thing, and I think that would fall under gross malfeasance. If someone got convicted.
Just a quick response. I don't think so, because that gross malfeasance typically refers to official actions. That's
At some point, everything does become subjective, as Mr. Nana said. I think it very arguably can be, but I also think we could do, what if this, what if that? And the fact is, that hasn't been an issue. Honestly, eventually, now this isn't something this body could do. I would love to see our bylaws provide for a recall rights of members, that they could take care of things that they don't like, rather than this body doing it. But the fact is, the things in here, again, one thing is complementary to the other. And I also wouldn't mind if the question was divided if people were in favor of some and not the other. But the fact is, when it comes down to a lot of this, it's people going on other people's social media, not liking something that they said on their social media, and they're trying to punish them on this LNC. And here's the fact, when we all were elected, unless some of us had a personality change, the delegates knew what they were buying. And just because some other people on the LNC don't like the choice of the delegates, shouldn't then be used in this smaller body to override the will of the delegates, which frankly is what was done multiple times last time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harlow. We've got Mr. Smith. Oh. Mr. Smith next. Then
He was up there.
Mr. Blankenship. Then Mr. Dowsing, then Mr. Elliott, then Mr. Payne. Okay.
That's only 4 here, I think.
Okay. Blankenship.
Can you put me in the queue afterwards?
Yeah. Dustin Blankenship.
I guess my question would just be in the conversation we were having. We all signed a pledge saying that we will not commit acts of violence or non-aggression. Well, we would enforce it.
Not any acts of violence, but initiate.
Well, right, but the case being, if someone's convicted of a battery, that seems pretty clear to me that that's an act of aggression.
That is not.
My point being that, let me rephrase. My point being that then could be brought up because that is a violation of that agreement, right? That could go to the hearing. It would have to be in policy meeting, it would be covered under that pledge.
Do you want,
I don't, if we're gonna save too much time. Okay, we're gonna jump around, and then it's okay. Okay, so hold on. Mr. Gadd.
I think this was covered in the malfeasance, general conflict, because it clearly states in the definition of malfeasance, physical harm, someone else.
Okay.
But I just want to make that clear that it's already in the definition.
Mr. Elliott?
Yeah, my point also, if one of these scenarios would occur, the earlier provision put a 2/3 vote to suspend the member, not remove them, and have a trial, and put on, and deal with the adjudication of a situation that way. We have a procedure, and so someone would not get away with something that would allow us to do that previous procedure. So essentially, point of clarification.
Thank you.
Yes, I just want to point out the political reality of what we're modifying and the state of things. This isn't the policy manual. We're getting ready to amend the policy manual. A future LNC could amend the policy manual, change the standards, and then remove them. So at the end of the day, it's all about how many votes you have on the LNC, the external protection, and if there is anything that's actually binding on this body, it would have to be done by the delegates in the bylaws.
okay, I do agree that a future LNC can simply amend it again. But I think they're then showing their hand is exactly what they're doing, and the members will see it. What was done last time, there was a little bit of a sleight of hand. I want to make it obvious what's going on. To answer your question about the agreement, there really isn't. A lot of people, and most people will be shocked I say this, but I have to be historically accurate. History doesn't care about my feelings. There is no such agreement. The pledge was never put into place to be a litmus test or some kind of contract. David Nolan made it very clear that the pledge was put into place to protect the party against the government to show that we were not violent revolutionaries. That really is the purpose of the pledge. Now, our platform speaks about non-aggression, but there is no agreement, a membership agreement. Otherwise, we would be removing people left and right. But it was to assure the government that we weren't domestic terrorists. That was the purpose of the pledge.
Mr. Smith?
Great arguments, everybody. Awesome. I call the question.
And there you have it. Any objection to call the question? No. Going once, going twice. Okay, question is called. We are going to move to a vote. And our secretary is typing it up.
Yeah, I can't put that whole motion in there, so I have it, it's in the one note.
Does everyone have a copy of it? It's a little bit lengthy, so if you have a laptop, pull that up. It's let's see here. Policy manual.
I think it's the second
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entries down. In new business with previous notice, if you hover your mouse over it, it's amend policy manual 2.01.05. We good? It's quite long, so we're not going to read the entire thing because that's not how we do things.
Yeah, well, I read it earlier.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're ready, we'll go to the roll.
Mr. Benner?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Pass.
Mr. Bowen?
Yes.
Mr. Duquesne?
Yes.
Mr. Eklund?
Yes.
Ms. Eiler? Yes. Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nana?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Express interest in.
Madam Chair, it's 13 yes, 0 no, 1 express abstention.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. I
Okay.
would remind you that reasonable people thought we should be locked at home for a year because of this.
Reasonable.
All right, moving on.
Okay, and this is the last complimentary thing I have. As you can tell, there is a theme. I would move to add a new policy manual section 2.01.6 as follows. This is actually something that the past LNC had wanted to add. I don't think they would have worded it exactly this way, and, you know, this could be changed, you know, potentially in the future if we wanted to expand the definition. But it's 2.01.6 whistleblower protection. Mere criticism, even if harsh, of the policies, decisions, and business practices of the LNC by other members of the LNC shall not be considered harassment or grounds for removal from office for officers and at-large members. Rules of decorum shall apply to all official interactions. And if you're wondering why I'm limiting it to officers and at-large, the LNC has no authority over regional representatives. That's governed by your regional agreements. If there's a second.
Second.
I don't think I need to speak to it.
Second whole question.
Oh, there you go.
Nice, I like it.
Well, stand by 1 second, and then we will go to a roll call vote.
If I can just,
Yep.
on there.
I'm sorry, request for information on this item.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I can just get.
Sure.
I actually can put it up here. There we go.
Mark, 6. So the question is, this proposed item talks about criticism of the policy practices of us, right? And it seeks to say that's not harassment of anybody. But indeed, such criticism does not typically fall into the traditional definition of whistleblowing, right? Whistleblowing is Dustin finds out what's going on in the office, you got by the chair, you investigate. So I'm unclear as to how this is a whistleblowing.
Are you asking for?
I'm asking, how is this a whistleblowing? You know, is it field handing, or is it secret? All whistleblowing, I don't see it.
So my understanding is that when you blow the whistle on someone, you are complaining. So Edward Snowden had, you know, complaints about what our government did. It was more than just, you know, I don't like that they're mean, let's say, killing people and whatnot.
Right, I mean, as I think
We're not
we're
gonna get
getting
into
into
this
debate at this point, but, as I said, I don't think this encompasses the entirety of what we need for a whistleblower paragraph. That's why I said it can be added to, but I do think it's a minimum, because I can tell you that when I discovered what was going on in New Hampshire, all I did to expose it was harsh criticism, and I was told I was harassing the officer. And I believe I was a whistleblower, so I believe this is, I agree with you, this is not a complete definition.
Okay.
And it should be added to, but I wanted to at least get this in there as a starting point.
Okay, let's go to a vote, because debate has closed this question.
Okay, 1 second. Yeah, I'm in the spot. All right, are we ready, Madam Chair? Okay, Mr. Benner?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Duque?
Yes.
Mr. Eklund?
Yes.
Ms. Ida?
Yes.
Mr. Elliott?
No.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nana? Mr. Smith?
Yep.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Madam Chair, it is 12 to 1 to 1.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, I'm done for now.
Okay, so it is 11:49, and we are going to break for lunch at 12 o'clock, so I think we should probably do that now.
I will motion this. Yeah, absolutely.
Motion,
To recess now for lunch with the.
Okay.
1 p.m.
Patrick, 1 p.m.
Second.
Move to second. Any objections to go to lunch right now? You wouldn't. Okay, we're at lunch. Thank you.
You ready to go? 30 days on that. Or,
I would imagine